The series begins with Seo Ji-hwan, a handsome man who used to be a bit of a troublemaker. He has a cool and confident personality, but he can be a bit silly at times. Ji-hwan was once the leader of a gang, taking over from his father, who was involved in the mafia. But after becoming the strongest, Ji-hwan decided to quit the gang life and disbanded his group. Now, he lives a normal life and is the CEO of a food company called Thirsty Deer. His company is known for hiring people who have had a tough past. On the other hand, Eun-ha is a beautiful woman who loves children. She works as a content creator on a popular children's website, making videos and content for kids. Because of her job, she has all kinds of costumes, including police uniforms. One day, by chance, Ji-hwan and Eun-ha meet at a nightclub called Chat. Ji-hwan was there to find his friend Taek, who was struggling with a drug problem. At that time, Eun-ha mistakenly thought Ji-hwan was causing trouble, so she handcuffed him with toy handcuffs, thinking she was stopping him from making a mess. But in reality, Ji-hwan was trying to show that the drink brought by a waiter had been tampered with and had drugs in it. Unfortunately, the nightclub boss pushed the waiter, and the bottle broke, losing the evidence. Then, Ji-hwan noticed something strange was going on, so he asked Eun-ha to show her police ID. But Eun-ha got scared, and Ji-hwan started to think she might be pretending to be a police officer. Luckily, real police officers arrived, which gave Eun-ha a chance to escape. She left the nightclub wearing a sparkling robe to cover her clothes, just like she had when she came in. The next day, Eun-ha got into an argument with her boss, Mr. Ma, at Macaron Soft. She had made a small mistake in one of her videos. She forgot to promote the product that the company was selling. Eun-ha explained that she didn't want to pressure the parents of the kids who watch her videos because the product was too expensive. Mr. Ma warned her that he might not renew her contract because of this. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan's subordinate suspected that a man named Gang-gil, who is the chairman of a paint company and an accomplice of the club owner, might have reported their boss to the police. They have been enemies for a long time. Due to the chaos last night, Ji-hwan failed to find Taek, who might be connected to drug trafficking at Club Cat. One of Ji-hwan's other subordinates, Il-young, showed him a new type of drug being sold at the club. Ji-hwan was shocked to see that the drug looked exactly like the candy Eun-ha had dropped there. While working at her part-time job, Eun-ha spotted Ji-hwan. She tried to hide and saw him scolding a child for stealing money from a restaurant. Thinking that Ji-hwan was bullying the child, Eun-ha, who was hiding in a mascot costume, hit him on the head. Later, when Eun-ha was selling her goods on the side of the road, she ran into Ji-hwan again. Realizing who he was, Eun-ha tried to run away, but because she was still in the heavy mascot costume, Ji-hwan caught up with her easily. Ji-hwan suspected that Eun-ha was part of the cat company and involved in selling drugs disguised as candy. Even though she insisted it was just regular candy for kids, Ji-hwan didn't believe her. To prove it, Eun-ha ate a handful of the candy, but she ended up choking on a piece and had a hard time getting it out. After going to the hospital, it was confirmed that Eun-ha was telling the truth that the candy was not a drug, just regular candy. Because of what happened at the nightclub before, Ji-hwan warned Eun-ha to stay away from him. At another time, Eun-ha met with her friend Mi-ho. They had a conversation, and Mi-ho mentioned that Eun-ha always seemed to have bad luck whenever she got involved with someone named Hyun-woo. Eun-ha often confused different people with the same name, like a scary-looking guy in the library or a pharmacist who was afraid of his wife. This happened because Eun-ha hadn't seen the real Hyun-woo for many years. What Eun-ha didn't know was that Hyun-woo had become a smart and professional prosecutor. Hyun-woo believed that people, especially criminals, could never truly change, so he never trusted what suspects said. Unfortunately, Hyun-woo hadn't yet met Ji-hwan, who had left his criminal past behind and was now helping others to change their lives, even though one of his subordinates, Taek, had gone back to his old ways. During an investigation, a former gang leader who had become a pastor mentioned Ji-hwan's name to Hyun-woo. The pastor explained that Ji-hwan had recruited all his men, which led him to commit crimes. Meanwhile, Il-young was worried that a new product they were planning to sell might not do well, so he suggested offering samples at a children's food festival. Coincidentally, Eun-ha also attended the event to promote her company's product, which was organic milk. No other employees wanted to go, so Eun-ha was sent to record the event and all the companies that participated. Suddenly, there was a big commotion at the Thirsty Deer stand. At that moment, a man got angry at Jae-soo, who was in charge of the stand, because he was worried that the food his son was tasting might have dangerous ingredients. The man even threw the food on the ground. At the same time, Ji-hwan was facing a similar problem because the market company refused to sell their products due to the bad reputation of Ji-hwan's workers. While Ji-hwan tried to stay calm, Jae-soo couldn't control himself and fought back. This chaos made a nearby boy start crying. Eun-ha, who saw all this happening, quickly tried to stop the fight by getting the crowd to sing and clap along. When Ji-hwan heard about the trouble Jae-soo caused, he went straight to the festival and closed down their stand. As he walked around, Ji-hwan noticed someone happily interacting with kids in a cooking class. When he saw the woman smile, Ji-hwan's heart started beating faster. Before going home, something unexpected happened to Ji-hwan. He fell down the stairs because he was accidentally hit by the end of a mop that Eun-ha was holding. Eun-ha was cleaning up some spilled flour near the restroom, and when she realized that Ji-hwan looked very familiar, she let go of the mop, causing Ji-hwan to lose his balance. Seeing Ji-hwan fall, all his workers panicked and immediately called an ambulance. Eun-ha was terrified that she might go to jail because she was the main suspect, but luckily Ji-hwan was saved, though he did crack a rib from being hit by the mop. While resting at the hospital, Ji-hwan spent his time watching Eun-ha's videos on her channel, thinking about her smile. Meanwhile, even though Hyun-woo seems strict and a bit harsh on the outside, he has a very soft heart when it comes to children. Hyun-woo often brings the children of victims to his office and plays Eun-ha's videos to cheer them up, but he covers their ears with AirPods so he can discuss cases more freely. At the same time, a colleague told Hyun-woo about an incident at a nightclub that involved Ji-hwan. On the other hand, Ji-hwan tries to get thoughts of Eun-ha out of his mind. But to his surprise, Eun-ha is not just a figment of his imagination, she's real. Ji-hwan nearly hit her with an IV pole, thinking she was just a shadow. Eun-ha had come to bring him his glasses, which he had lost during the incident, and she also brought him some high-calcium soy milk to help him heal. Once she saw that Ji-hwan was okay, Eun-ha said goodbye. However, she accidentally left her bag open, causing all its contents to spill out, including some items she kept for emergencies. Just as Eun-ha was about to leave, one of Ji-hwan's subordinates knocked on the door. Ji-hwan quickly tried to hide her under the bed. There, Jae-soo came in to inform Ji-hwan that Eun-ha might be a spy from the cat company and shared some information about her background. Ji-hwan told him not to hurt her, and before Jae-soo could say anything more, Ji-hwan quickly asked him to leave the room. Ji-hwan was worried that Eun-ha, who was hiding under the blanket, might overhear their conversation. After Eun-ha left, Ji-hwan was left feeling confused, and Eun-ha herself was worried because Ji-hwan's subordinates seemed to know almost everything about her. At the same time, Eun-ha got a notification about a comment on a video she didn't even upload. The video showed the chaos that happened at the Thirsty Deer stand. Eun-ha immediately went to see Mr. Lee, who was in charge of recording videos at the festival. It turned out that Mr. Ma was the one who uploaded the video. He did it to get public attention and make more money for the company. Eun-ha was upset because the video could create a negative impression, especially since the editing didn't match what actually happened. The video got a lot of negative comments and became a hot topic among the employees. The only person happy about the video was Yang-hee, the head of the cat company. He knew that Thirsty Deer would be busy dealing with the fallout from the video and would likely ignore Take's case. On the other hand, Ji-hwan isn't sure if Eun-ha was the one who uploaded the video. All his subordinates are angry and want to take legal action because their product's reputation is now at risk. Like Ji-hwan, Hyun-woo also doubts that Eun-ha uploaded the video, as the editing style is different from her other videos. Seeing all the mean comments from people online, Hyun-woo feels uneasy. Soon after, Ji-hwan and Il-young decided to visit the Macaron Soft office to discuss a lawsuit. Meanwhile, Mr. Ma, worried about the fines and penalties, planned to delete the video and take action against Eun-ha to punish her. However, Ji-hwan just wanted the video deleted and for them to sign an agreement not to do it again. After getting the original videotape, Eun-ha tried to explain everything to Ji-hwan. But Ji-hwan misunderstood and thought that Eun-ha was using the situation to make money. This made Eun-ha very sad, especially when she found out that Thirsty Deer products were being boycotted. At that time, Ji-hwan and his team were also upset because they had worked hard on the product, and now it was failing because of what happened at the festival. They felt like they didn't deserve a second chance. Then, Eun-ha tried to fix things by anonymously uploading the original video since she couldn't access her own channel. The video showed that Thirsty Deer employees were actually polite and cared about children. When Ji-hwan saw the video, he felt really sorry for blaming Eun-ha. Later that afternoon, Ji-hwan saw Eun-ha at the hospital. She was telling fairy tales to sick children, and they were all excited to listen. Without Eun-ha noticing, Ji-hwan couldn't help but admire her kindness and beauty. While at the hospital, she went to visit Ji-hwan's room, but since there was no answer, she just left a small gift outside his door. Turns out at that time Ji-hwan was out taking a walk to get some fresh air. Then, he saw Eun-ha coming out of a convenience store and secretly followed her to the bus stop. They apologized to each other for the misunderstanding that had happened. When Ji-hwan got back to his room, he opened a parcel from Eun-ha that contained an apple and a letter of apology. Later, when crossing the street, Hyun-woo accidentally ran into Eun-ha. He wanted to greet her, but she quickly ran and got into a taxi. Eun-ha was very worried after seeing news about children getting sick from drinking organic milk, the same product she had been promoting. She rushed to the hospital and saw the affected children for herself. One of the mothers recognized Eun-ha and angrily demanded that she take responsibility for what happened to her child. Other parents joined in, shouting at her and throwing milk at her. Feeling guilty, Eun-ha didn't know what to do. Ji-hwan, who had just been picked up by his men, saw her getting out of the taxi and quickly went to the hospital. He protected Eun-ha from the angry crowd and took her away. Even though Eun-ha wanted to go back inside to explain, Ji-hwan stopped her, worried that things would get worse, especially since she had hurt her leg while climbing the stairs. Can't fix the situation, Eun-ha went home in Ji-hwan's car, feeling like she was running away from the problem. She regretted trusting the dairy company and felt responsible for the sick children. However, Ji-hwan reminded her that she needed to take care of herself too, so he gave her medicine to treat her injured leg. Meanwhile, Mi-ho was impressed by Il-young, who opened the car door for Eun-ha. Surprisingly, Il-young gave her his business card, offering to meet up anytime, which made Ji-hwan jealous. To get Eun-ha's attention, Ji-hwan asked her to wash his jacket, which had been stained with milk. Il-young did this on purpose because he knew Ji-hwan liked Eun-ha and wanted to tease him. On the other hand, Mi-ho, feeling bad for Eun-ha, stopped her from watching any news about the organic milk controversy. She also put a pain relief patch on Eun-ha's injured leg. As they talked, Eun-ha explained to Mi-ho why she cares so much about small children. It all started with how Hyun-woo treated her when she was a child. Hyun-woo had inspired Eun-ha to become a content creator who makes children happy, especially since her own parents were often away, and Hyun-woo was always there to comfort her. The next day, the doctor told Eun-ha that the condition of the kids who got sick wasn't too serious. Most of them were allowed to go home, except for one child, and it was the same one whose mother had yelled at Eun-ha earlier. From this mother, Eun-ha learned that the child was actually a fan of her videos. The mother explained that her child often watched Eun-ha's videos while she worked, and instead of blaming her, the mother actually thanked her. On the other hand, Eun-ha had to face the consequences of the controversy she was involved in. She decided to take a break and stop uploading videos on her channel for a while. What Eun-ha didn't expect was that Ji-hwan had helped the sick child by arranging for a VIP room until they were well enough to go home. Meanwhile, Hyun-woo, knowing that Eun-ha was a witness to the incident at the club involving Ji-hwan, tried to contact her. But Eun-ha thought the call was from a scammer, so she hung up immediately. At the same time, Ina, Eun-ha's co-worker at Macaron Soft, wanted to repay a debt to Ji-hwan. Ina admitted that she knew a lot about him, as she had told Eun-ha. However, Ji-hwan didn't know who Ina was, even though she was a public figure. In the end, Ji-hwan refused the money she offered and politely said goodbye. Feeling desperate because she couldn't find a new job, Eun-ha put aside her pride and decided to accept Yina's offer to work as a cleaning assistant at her house during her break. On the other hand, Mr. Oh, Hyun-woo's colleague at the prosecutor's office, investigated Taek, who was involved in a drug network in Thailand. Mr. Oh also found evidence of a new type of drug being distributed by other networks. At the same time, Ji-hwan's efforts to find Taek were still ongoing. He asked Yang-hee to stop involving Taek and to release him, but Yang-hee denied hiring him. There, Ji-hwan was determined to get Taek back because he believed that his subordinate was a good person. After some investigation, Ji-hwan found out that Taek really cared about his family and had even renovated his sister's house. Before returning Ji-hwan's jacket, which he had washed, Eun-ha noticed that one of the buttons was about to fall off, so she sewed it back on. While doing this, Yina contacted her to start work the next morning. This made Eun-ha excited, especially when she saw Yina's house in person, and it was so impressive that she couldn't stop admiring it. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan was upset because Eun-ha's channel was temporarily disabled. He usually relaxed by watching her videos, and now he felt frustrated. He didn't even feel like eating or going out, even though Il-young offered to take him. All Ji-hwan wanted was for Eun-ha to return his jacket. After cleaning Yina's house, Eun-ha discovered why Yina's videos were always successful. Yina always reviewed each video and looked for ways to improve it if the views were low. It made sense that her had won so many awards. On the other hand, Il-young's charm with women was undeniable. That morning, he visited Miho to get a haircut and brought her a gift. When Miho noticed that Il-young's shoelaces were untied, her caring nature kicked in and she tied them for him, which made Il-young feel touched. After returning from the office, Yina embarrassed Eun-ha by inviting some co-workers to her house, but Eun-ha didn't let it bother her. Yina was just annoyed because she thought Eun-ha didn't take content creation seriously, even though she had chosen this field because she genuinely loved working with children. Without realizing it, Ji-hwan was overhearing their conversation. He hadn't left his bed all morning, but Il-young suggested he go to Yina's house, so he did. Ji-hwan knew where Eun-ha was hiding, and when he got to Yina's house, she thought he was there to see her. There, Yina tried to stop him from chasing after Eun-ha, but Ji-hwan eventually caught up with her when she stopped on the side of the road. Eun-ha thought Ji-hwan liked Yina, and she admitted that if she were a man, she would probably like Yina too because she seemed so perfect. During their conversation, Eun-ha suddenly revealed that she hated thugs and the mafia. She explained that when she was a child, she and her mom had to deal with the mafia because of her father's actions. Eun-ha said she would be grateful if Ji-hwan wasn't involved in that kind of life. Meanwhile, Hyun-woo was reminded of Eun-ha when he saw the umbrella she had given him. He wanted to meet her the next day. This umbrella was given to him when he was caught in the rain at a cafe after a blind date. Although there were many things he wanted to say, Hyun-woo hadn't had the courage to greet her. While spending time with Ji-hwan, Eun-ha realized that he acted very differently when he was drunk. He even invited her to ride amusement park rides, and strangely enough, she went along with it and ended up having fun. Ji-hwan encouraged Eun-ha to keep doing what made her happy, like making videos, because he felt lonely without being able to watch her channel. As things started to feel awkward, Eun-ha decided to end their meeting. But as she was leaving, she accidentally tripped over Ji-hwan's foot and fell on him. When drunk, Ji-hwan not only acted strangely but also spoke incoherently. Luckily, Il-young showed up just in time to pick him up. The next day, Ji-hwan woke up feeling embarrassed about his actions from the night before. As he was about to head to a meeting, he got a message from Eun-ha saying she wanted to return his jacket. It turned out that the business card Il-young had given her earlier wasn't his own but Ji-hwan's. Elsewhere, Eun-ha decided to meet with Hyun-woo at the prosecutor's office to discuss the cat club case. When she arrived, she was surprised to see a familiar name on the door and quickly realized that the person she was meeting might be her childhood friend. Even though Hyun-woo recognized her, he wasn't ready to reveal his identity. As for the case, Eun-ha couldn't provide much information because she had arrived after the fight had already happened. Meanwhile, during a meeting, Ji-hwan was distracted and started hallucinating, thinking he saw Eun-ha's shadow. His subordinates were confused, especially when Ji-hwan suddenly shouted because he had accidentally typed the wrong reply to Eun-ha's message. Later, as Eun-ha and Hyun-woo were talking and looking at her business card, they didn't notice a motorbike speeding by. Luckily, Hyun-woo used his umbrella to protect Eun-ha from getting splashed by water. When Eun-ha saw the umbrella, she remembered that Hyun-woo was the same person who had been rejected on a blind date recently. Just as they were about to talk more, Hyun-woo received a call, so they had to end the meeting. After leaving, Eun-ha was shocked to find out that Mr. Ma decided not to renew her contract. She was upset because she hadn't even uploaded her final video to say goodbye to her fans. Ji-hwan quickly heard the news. He was worried because Il-young had told him that Eun-ha had no one to turn to and was now being kicked out of her apartment. At that time, Eun-ha didn't want to bother Miho, who was celebrating her father's birthday, so she didn't ask for help. With nowhere to go, Eun-ha wandered the streets near her old home. As she walked, it started to rain heavily. Passing by Hyun-woo's old house, Eun-ha remembered how he once told her to hide in a snow equipment storage area to avoid someone chasing them. After leaving the area, she unexpectedly ran into Ji-hwan, who immediately covered her from the rain and gave her a handkerchief to wipe her face. It turned out that Ji-hwan now lived in Hyunwoo's old house. To avoid suspicion, Eun-ha lied and said she was going on holiday, even though Ji-hwan already knew she had no place to stay. Pretending to check if a stain on his jacket was gone, Ji-hwan invited Eun-ha into his house. Meanwhile, Miho was worried about Eun-ha because she had been missing all day. But Il-young assured her that Eun-ha was safe and staying at Ji-hwan's house. Before leaving, Miho invited Il-young to eat at her house, but he declined, saying he wasn't hungry. At Ji-hwan's house, Eun-ha cried after reading comments from her fans asking her to come back soon. Even though her job was tough, seeing the happy faces of the children made her feel relieved and happy too. Before going to bed, Ji-hwan made her ramyeon and warm milk, but Eun-ha fell asleep, so Ji-hwan covered her with a blanket. The next morning, Eun-ha woke up in Ji-hwan's room, feeling a bit confused. She quickly went to the dining table, surprising everyone there. Il-young invited her to have breakfast since one of Ji-hwan's subordinates had already cooked. However, Jae-soo, who still held a grudge against Eun-ha, wasn't happy to see her. After eating, Eun-ha wanted to help clean up the kitchen and dining table, but as a guest, she wasn't allowed to. It was clear that Il-young didn't want Ji-hwan to go alone to meet Taek's younger sister because Ji-hwan wasn't good at talking to kids. Il-young suggested getting help from someone who understands children, and it was Eun-ha. At that time, she agreed to help, especially since Ji-hwan had let her stay overnight and given her a free breakfast. Then, Il-young pretended to be busy all day so that Ji-hwan and Eun-ha would go together. The car ride was a bit awkward for both of them, so to break the ice, they apologized to each other for the misunderstanding that happened at the cat club. During the trip, Eun-ha learned more about Ji-hwan, discovering that he trusted former convicts and gave them jobs because he believed they could change for the better. On the other hand, Yina knew how to use the situation to her advantage. She met with Hong-ki, one of Ji-hwan's subordinates, and showed him an offer she had received from Thirsty Deer, a competing company that often copied their strategies. However, Yina said she would consider working with them to repay her debt to Ji. 8 years ago, Ji-hwan had helped her escape from gangsters led by Gang Gil by paying off her parents' debt. Although Taek's younger sister initially tried to block Ji-hwan from entering their home, Eun-ha managed to calm the little girl, allowing Ji-hwan to come inside. There, Ji-hwan remembered how Taek started working for him was because Taek was a sincere man who deeply loved his younger sister. Taek's sister wrote a message on a kite with Eun-ha, hoping that her older brother would return soon. While Eun-ha was playing with the kite alongside Taek's sister, a car approached them. The driver turned out to be Hyunwoo. Hyunwoo felt uneasy about how close Ji-hwan and Eun-ha had become, especially because of Ji-hwan's criminal past. Hyunwoo was worried that Eun-ha might get caught up in the trouble surrounding Taek. Instead of clearing up the misunderstanding, Ji-hwan chose to leave and let Eun-ha go home with Hyunwoo. Even though Hyunwoo saw Ji-hwan as a dangerous man to be avoided, Eun-ha didn't feel the same way. She saw Ji-hwan as just a regular boss who cared about his employees. Eun-ha wasn't afraid to be around Ji-hwan. Before they parted ways, Hyunwoo advised Eun-ha to be more confident because the children really enjoyed her work. Although Hyunwoo was close to Eun-ha, there was another reason why he disliked Ji-hwan so much. In the past, Ji-hwan had committed a crime that resulted in casualties at Hyunwoo's school. Hyunwoo still remembered how terrifying Ji-hwan's gaze had been back then. One night, when Eun-ha went to pick up her backpack that she had left at Ji-hwan's house, she was startled by a suspicious man dressed in all black. It turned out to be Jae-soo. Without being asked, Eun-ha started explaining her relationship with Hyunwoo, but Ji-hwan didn't want to hear it. Instead, Ji-hwan told Eun-ha that she shouldn't trust ex-convicts like him anymore. Since she didn't have a place to stay, Eun-ha ended up spending the night at a sauna. While walking back from the cafeteria, she accidentally stepped on a man's foot, and it was Hong-ki. There, Hong-ki confessed that he had borrowed Ji-hwan's stamp to sign a contract, but he didn't return it to the right place. Afraid of getting caught, Hong-ki was too scared to go home. Turns out, Ji-hwan wasn't as bad as people thought, because he had once helped Hong-ki by paying off his father's debts to free him from gangsters. Then, Hong-ki explained that his father had taught him to do business in a sneaky way, which eventually got him into trouble with gangsters. In the middle of their conversation, Hong-ki received a call and had to leave the sauna. But before he could reach the door, he accidentally bumped into a big man, and his phone fell. The man's friends recognized Hong-ki as one of Ji-hwan's subordinates. When they started to threaten the nervous Hong-ki, Eun-ha quickly stepped in to defend him. Without them realizing it, Ji-hwan arrived and turned the situation around. The men quickly returned Hong-ki's phone. It turned out that Hong-ki was waiting for a package delivery. The package contained a contract for a collaboration with Yi-na, who was going to be the brand ambassador for Thirsty Deer. Hong-ki had been worried that Yi-na might get taken by a competitor, so he quickly made a contract using Ji-hwan's stamp without permission. Even though Hong-ki argued that he did it for the company, Ji-hwan was disappointed in his actions. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan decided to let Eun-ha stay at his house for a while because he was worried about her safety if she stayed at the sauna and ran into dangerous people again. Since Eun-ha refused to be paid for staying, she offered to help by becoming a private tutor for Ji-hwan's subordinates. Reluctantly, they agreed to study with her, especially after Ji-hwan threatened them with demotion if they didn't. On the other hand, Ji-hwan's words from the previous night had hurt Hong-ki a little, so he tried to prove that he could live independently without his boss's help. To show off, he even bought a luxury car. But there, Eun-ha felt a bit happy living at Ji-hwan's house because it reminded her of Hyun-woo, who used to live in the basement unit. And Miho, as a concerned friend, was a bit worried since all the people living in the house were men. When Il-young went to the salon to pick up Eun-ha's things, Miho asked for Ji-hwan's full address and planned to go there if anything happened to her friend. While exploring the house, Eun-ha overheard Ji-hwan scolding his subordinates. They thought Hong-ki's idea of making Yi-na the brand ambassador was a good one, but Ji-hwan disagreed. He felt it didn't align with the company's values, especially since their goal wasn't to become the best, given that many people already underestimated them because of their pasts. Meanwhile, Eun-ha didn't realize that her room was right next to Ji-hwan. When they were both on the balcony, Ji-hwan noticed a bug on her temple. When he reached out to remove it, Eun-ha got nervous and embarrassed, quickly walking away afterward. Later, Ji-hwan received some information from Il-young about Eun-ha's childhood. While they were on the phone, Ji-hwan saw someone suspicious in the park. To his surprise, it was Eun-ha, who was out for some fresh air because she couldn't sleep. She had visited that area because it reminded her of her childhood friends, even though those friends had moved away after their parents divorced. Even though it was late, Eun-ha thanked Ji-hwan for letting her stay at his house. She realized that without him, she would have nowhere to live. With Thirsty Deer's sales declining, Ji-hwan asked Il-young to improve the product quality, as the drop in sales was due to the public's negative impression of the company. Even though Ji-hwan was disappointed in Hong-ki, he still worried about him. What Ji-hwan didn't know was that Hong-ki was living a luxurious life, enjoying expensive meals at restaurants. Eun-ha quickly found out where Hong-ki was because he kept posting about it on social media. While helping him with a money transfer service, Eun-ha subtly encouraged Hong-ki to come back. Meanwhile, Yi-na decided to sue Hong-ki for falsifying documents and demanded that Thirsty Deer pay a fine for breaking the contract. In the end, Ji-hwan agreed to a new contract, which included a special condition that he had to be present at every shoot and ensure that Yi-na got home safely. After gathering the courage, Hyun-woo met with Eun-ha and gave her a hint that brought back memories from their past. It turned out that Eun-ha had been searching for someone named Hyun-woo for over 20 years. She wanted to know how he was doing and apologize for any past mistakes. On the other hand, Eun-ha's welcoming party was a big celebration. She brought along Hong-ki, who regretted his actions. Ji-hwan said he would consider accepting Hong-ki back if he wrote an apology letter, just as Eun-ha suggested. When the event ended, Ji-hwan followed Eun-ha, who was heading into a room in the garden. Without realizing it, Eun-ha accidentally kissed Ji-hwan on the lips. The mistake she made that night made her wish she could disappear cause she was so embarrassed that she didn't want to leave her room. Meanwhile, Hong-ki and his friends had prepared breakfast, even though Jae-soo was still feeling dizzy from a hangover. In front of Ji-hwan, Eun-ha pretended that nothing had happened between them. In the park, Eun-ha searched for a treasure she had buried with her childhood friend under a tree that served as their special marker. Just then, Hyun-woo called to set up a meeting. The next day, Yi-na became the brand ambassador for a new Thirsty Deer product, a sausage for kids. During the product launch, a reporter asked her to try the sausage, but she hesitated because of her allergy. Noticing this, Ji-hwan quickly stepped in and took Yi-na to the hospital. At the same time, Hyun-woo continued investigating a drug case involving Taek. They were trying to find a connection between Taek, Ji-hwan, and Yang-hee, wondering why Ji-hwan had hired Taek in the first place. On the other side, Yang-hee was upset because his imprisoned boss, Tae-pyong, had belittled him, even though Yang-hee had been managing their business for years. Frustrated, Yang He told Gang Gil to contact Tawan, the head of the drug network, to get things moving again. Meanwhile, even though they were a bit late, Ji-hwan's subordinates attended Eun-ha's first class. Before it started, they mentioned how much attention Ji-hwan had paid to Yi-na at the launch event. Hearing this, Eun-ha felt a surge of jealousy. After the class ended, Ji-hwan's subordinates overheard him talking with Eun-ha, and it sounded like they were arguing. But then Eun-ha suddenly laughed, realizing that what Ji-hwan was worried about was actually something that's not too important. During class, Ji-hwan overheard Eun-ha being asked to describe him. Eun-ha jokingly called Ji-hwan a gangster shoulders because of his broad shoulders. The next day, Il-young and Miho were getting closer. The awkwardness between them had faded, and Il-young even visited her salon just to have dinner together. They opened up to each other about their backgrounds and interests. After dinner, they took a casual walk, chatting and enjoying each other's company, until they were accidentally splashed by water from a roadside restaurant. On the other hand, Ji-hwan took Eun-ha's comment as a compliment and started a new routine he wasn't used to, and it was a morning exercise. Ji-hwan's men noticed that something might be going on between him and Eun-ha, though Jae-soo didn't approve of their relationship. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan's subordinates felt that Yi-na wasn't a good fit as a brand ambassador because of her meat allergy. Reluctantly, Ji-hwan decided to cancel the contract because he didn't want to spread false information. A model needs to actually try the product and give honest feedback. As for Eun-ha, she found herself thinking about Ji-hwan's face while waiting for her meeting with Hyun-woo. Her surprise at this thought made Hyun-woo confused, so Eun-ha quickly said that she suddenly felt dizzy. She tried to keep calm so Hyun-woo wouldn't get suspicious. Meanwhile, the reason Il-young didn't come home last night was that he stayed at a hotel with Miho after they got splashed with water. The next day, Il-young seemed calm, but Miho was anxious and couldn't finish her food. While waiting for Eun-ha to return, Ji-hwan became more certain that Taek was being hidden by Yang He. Since they still hadn't found Taek, they decided to focus on investigating the syndicate in Thailand. Hyun-woo's plan to take Eun-ha to a restaurant he recommended didn't go well because none of the 3 places they tried were open. They ended up eating at a simple shop that only served ramyeon. As they ate, Eun-ha noticed that some of Hyun-woo's actions reminded her of her childhood friend, especially when he shared the sweet potatoes they were going to eat. Suddenly, Mr. Oh called to say that Taek's younger sister, Yeon Hee, had disappeared from home along with her grandmother. Upon hearing that, Hyun-woo and Eun-ha rushed over to find out what had happened. When Eun-ha called Ji-hwan, he told her to go home instead. Eun-ha got out of the car on the side of the road and refused to let Hyun-woo take her any further. Without Eun-ha knowing, Ji-hwan told Hyun-woo that he had taken Yeon Hee and her grandmother to a safe place. Ji-hwan felt that Hyun-woo was overly worried about his closeness with Eun-ha. However, Hyun-woo revealed that his dislike for Ji-hwan was based on something real cause Hyun-woo had witnessed an attack 10 years ago. At that time, Eun-ha was relieved to know that Yeon Hee and her grandmother were safe, but Ji-hwan was disappointed that Eun-ha hadn't told Hyun-woo she was currently living at his house. The next day, everyone in Ji-hwan's house was woken up by a loud alarm. They quickly grabbed their gear and rushed to get into the car, which left Eun-ha confused. However, instead of going to fight as she expected, they went to a meat processing factory. The female workers there thought Eun-ha was a new employee, so they invited her to help put stickers on the packaging. Meanwhile, Jae-soo and his friends showed off their skills at cutting meat. One of the female workers told Eun-ha that Ji-hwan is actually a good person. He gives ex-convicts, who are often seen as worthless, a chance to work. However, when Eun-ha was about to put stickers on the packaging, Man-ho deliberately sent her to the wrong storage area. Then, Eun-ha ended up in a cold room and got locked inside. To her surprise, Ji-hwan was also there, and they both got trapped with no way out because Ji-hwan's phone battery was dead. At that time, Man-ho had planned to lock them in together so they could spend some time alone, but he ended up losing the key. Knowing that the cold could be dangerous, Jae-soo and his friends quickly searched for the key to get them out. In the meantime, Ji-hwan tried to keep Eun-ha warm by giving her his jacket and hugging her from behind. Despite the cold making it hard to think, Eun-ha could feel the warmth from Ji-hwan. After a long wait, the door was finally opened. While Ji-hwan managed to stay conscious, Eun-ha passed out and had to be carried out by Ji-hwan. After being treated at the hospital, Eun-ha finally woke up. She remembered the moment when she and Ji-hwan were trapped in the cold room, where he made sure she stayed awake. This wasn't the first time Ji-hwan had protected her, so Eun-ha asked him why. Before he could answer, Ji-hwan noticed Jae-soo and his friends eavesdropping and quickly scolded them. And Man-ho, the main person responsible, kept apologizing, even though he meant well. His actions were not okay. Meanwhile, Hyun-woo decided not to send a message he had typed out for Eun-ha because she hadn't responded to his last one since they last met. Mr. Oh noticed that Hyun-woo seemed quieter than usual and felt something was different about him. After hearing from Il-young about Eun-ha's condition, Mi-ho rushed to the hospital. There, she ran into Il-young, who apologized for what had happened earlier. Although Mi-ho was a little disappointed by Il-young's apology, she tried to stay strong when facing Eun-ha and the others. She avoided talking much, saying she was busy organizing Eun-ha's things. Unexpectedly, Eun-ha's phone rang with a call from someone labeled as prosecutor. Both Hyun-woo and Eun-ha were surprised by how many things Mi-ho had brought to the hospital, even though Eun-ha was only staying for a day. It turned out that Ji-hwan had made the list of items for Mi-ho to bring. As for the call, Mi-ho had answered it without Eun-ha knowing. Worried that Hyun-woo might run into Ji-hwan, Eun-ha quickly approached Hyun-woo as soon as he arrived at the hospital. While leading Hyun-woo to another place, Eun-ha bumped into the child patients she often visited. They expressed their hope that she would start uploading videos again like before. Actually, Eun-ha was trying to gather the courage to start over. With everything that had happened recently, she was worried that her actions might affect her audience, most of whom were young children. Soon after, Eun-ha and Hyun-woo ended up playing with the kids, especially since Hyun-woo also liked children. Unexpectedly, Ji-hwan came back early, so Mi-ho told him that Eun-ha had gone to buy something and asked him to wait in the room until she returned. When Eun-ha saw that Ji-hwan was asleep, she didn't want to wake him. She just smiled as she watched him, thinking about their memories together. When Ji-hwan woke up, Eun-ha asked him to get an IV because she was worried about his health. Ji-hwan's secretive nature made Eun-ha curious about his past. Then, he shared that he had once opened up to someone because they both felt lonely. When he was young, Ji-hwan's family moved around a lot, so he never had the chance to make friends. The story was so engaging that he ended up falling asleep on the hospital bed. The next day, Ji-hwan woke up early and tried to leave without disturbing Eun-ha, who was still asleep. However, he didn't realize that his wallet had fallen out of his jacket pocket. Meanwhile, Mi-ho, who had slept in an awkward position, woke up with a crick in her neck. Someone started massaging her to help relax her muscles, and when she realized it was Il-young, she was startled and quickly pulled away. But it didn't help much because, after leaving the hospital, Il-young ended up driving Mi-ho home at Eun-ha's request. When Il-young arrived at Mi-ho's place, he was invited to have breakfast with her family. There, he met Mi-ho's father, who at first seemed very intimidating because of his tough and scary appearance. On the other hand, Eun-ha wanted to return Ji-hwan's wallet, which he had left at the hospital. However, when she tried to enter his office, security stopped her because she said she knew Ji-hwan. Luckily, Hong-ki arrived just in time to stop Eun-ha from being thrown out of the building. Despite Yina's insistence on finding a way to stay as a model for Thirsty Deer, Ji-hwan stood firm and canceled the collaboration contract. He even told Yina that she could take legal action if she wanted to. Then, Yina tried to prove she could eat Thirsty Deer's products, but Ji-hwan, worried about a repeat of the launch event, stopped her. At the same time, Eun-ha witnessed this scene from outside the room. After work, Ji-hwan cooked fried rice for Eun-ha. Although she didn't plan to bring up what she saw earlier, Ji-hwan took the initiative to explain it to her. While washing dishes, some soap suds accidentally got into Eun-ha's eye. Ji-hwan helped her by gently wiping it away, bringing them face to face, very close to each other. The moment was interrupted by Man-ho, who had been secretly watching them through the door. The next day, in a remote area, Taek was being kept locked up by someone who wouldn't let him go outside or even use the phone. At the same time, Hyun-woo's spies tracked down Ta-won, the head of a drug syndicate that Taek was involved with. At that moment, Ta-won was seen arriving at the port. Let's move on to Dong-hee, one of Ji-hwan's quiet subordinates. It turns out that Dong-hee is actually a spy working for Hyun-woo. Dong-hee often listens in on Ji-hwan and Il-young's conversations about Taek. But unlike what Hyun-woo believes, Dong-hee thinks that Ji-hwan is not a bad person. In fact, just like with Taek, Ji-hwan would definitely look for someone if they went missing. Meanwhile, Il-young received information from a spy about a deal between the cat company and Ta-won. Apparently, Ta-won agreed to the deal only if Taek was involved. Back to Eun-ha, who is happy to be volunteering with children at the hospital again. She feels that she can bring positive energy and hope to the kids. There, Hyun-woo encouraged Eun-ha to continue this work and even gave her some equipment to help with her storytelling. Hyun-woo had also asked Mr. Oh to find information about a man who shared his name. From the list of names, Hyun-woo found one that seemed familiar, and it was Hyun-mi, who is actually Tae-pyong's wife and Ji-hwan's mother. There, Hyun-woo realized that Ji-hwan and Eun-ha lived close to each other 20 years ago. Another surprising fact is that Ji-hwan's real name was Yoon Hyun-woo, but he changed it. Later, Eun-ha was surprised to see Ji-hwan holding a time capsule she had buried with her childhood friend. She also noticed that the soil she had dug up earlier in the garden looked like it had been disturbed again. This made her realize that Ji-hwan is actually the person she has been searching for. 8 years ago, Ji-hwan bought the house he had lived in as a child before changing his name. However, when Eun-ha asked him about it, Ji-hwan didn't admit the truth. Ironically, he is the person Hyun-woo wants to catch, but he also has a close connection with Eun-ha. While Hyun-woo was thinking about Eun-ha, she called him and asked to meet the next night, still believing that Hyun-woo is the childhood friend who was there for her years ago. At that time, Hyun-woo advises Ji-hwan to report Ta-won's deal with the cat company to the police because it's too dangerous for them to handle alone, as it involves a large-scale drug transaction. However, Ji-hwan refuses, worried that something might happen to Take. Without them knowing, Dong-hee overhears their conversation. Ji-hwan then asks about Hyun-woo, recalling that he and Il-young had been on the same campus. Hyun-woo is known for being strict against violence, especially when it involves gangsters. He even witnessed an attack involving Ji-hwan 10 years ago. Back then, Ji-hwan had put his father, Tae-pyong, in prison for stealing money through illegal gambling sites. At the same time, Ji-hwan decided to disband his gang, which made Young-hee very upset. To make matters worse, the hotel that Young-hee had helped manage for years was inherited by Ji-hwan. This led to an unavoidable attack by Young-hee and his friends. Despite being alone, Ji-hwan tried to defend himself but was repeatedly attacked, and Gang-gil even stabbed him in the stomach. While trying to escape, Hyun-woo mistook Ji-hwan for one of the attackers, and this misunderstanding has continued ever since. Then, Hyun-woo's view of Ji-hwan has started to change. He used to believe that a criminal would always be a bad person, but according to those who know Ji-hwan, he's not as dangerous as Hyun-woo once thought. Later, Hyun-woo meets Mi-jin, a woman whose grandmother was a victim in the incident 10 years ago. From Mi-jin's statement, Hyun-woo learns that Ji-hwan was not the attacker. In fact, Ji-hwan was seriously injured and had to undergo surgery. To Mi-jin, Ji-hwan is not a bad person cause he even attended her grandmother's funeral and funded Mi-jin's college education, so she could continue her studies without worrying about the cost. Meanwhile, the reason Ji-hwan didn't reveal his true identity to Eun-ha is that he struggles with his past. He feels that the situation is very different now, and he's afraid that knowing the truth might put Eun-ha in danger in the future. The next morning, Eun-ha was treated to a friendly breakfast by Jae-soo and his friends. But when Ji-hwan didn't come down to join them, Dong-hee shared the plan he overheard the night before, which was about searching for Take. Worried about Ji-hwan's safety, Jae-soo and his friends wanted to report it to the authorities. However, Eun-ha remembered that they had shared their locations via cell phone, so she quickly tracked down Ji-hwan. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan noticed that Il-young was following his car and told him to turn back. But Il-young insisted on staying with him, remembering how 10 years ago he couldn't help Ji-hwan because he was busy with exams. On the other side, Mr. Young, who works with Hyun-woo, was tracking Ta-won's drug distribution. At that time, Young-hee and his gang were waiting in a warehouse where they had imprisoned Take for betraying them. Suddenly, Ji-hwan tackled Young-hee, who was opening a window. At the same time, Il-young cut the ropes binding Take's hands and quickly helped him escape. Realizing Ji-hwan was alone, Gang-gil hit him with a car, throwing Ji-hwan several meters away. Knowing they were being followed, Ta-won's car turned around, and Mr. Young tried not to lose sight of them. Exhausted, Mr. Young asked his colleague to ram the drug dealer's car to stop them. Meanwhile, because Ji-hwan ruined Young-hee's plan, he ended up with a serious injury to his hand, and Gang-gil was left badly beat. Fortunately, Hyun-woo found their location, and the police arrived to arrest Young-hee's men, though Young-hee himself managed to escape. Ji-hwan was also arrested because the police thought he was involved with the gang. When Hyun-woo called Eun-ha, she pretended not to know anything about the situation. In reality, She, along with Jae-soo and the others, were waiting for Ji-hwan at the police station. There, Hyun-woo planned to question Eun-ha about why she was at the crime scene, but the conversation shifted when Eun-ha mentioned she thought Hyun-woo was her childhood friend. After the interrogation, Ji-hwan was released and met by Il-young, who had brought Taek with him. When Ji-hwan walked out of the police station, Jae-soo and his friends looked worried, but Ji-hwan told them to go home. Later, Ji-hwan found Young-hee's hiding place and trapped him in a car so they could talk privately. At that time, Ji-hwan warned Young-hee not to mess with his men anymore. Elsewhere, Tae-pyong blamed Young-hee for the failed deal with Ta-won, which led to several gang members getting arrested. There, Tae-pyong made it clear that Young-hee now had to follow all his orders. Tae-pyong's return made Young-hee feel sidelined because Tae-pyong, who had just been released from prison, saw him as not capable enough. As a result, Young-hee's responsibilities were given to someone else. The next day, Hyun-woo interrupted Mr. Oh's weekend to ask for help with more research. Hyun-woo was still curious about Tae-pyong, but Mr. Oh warned that Ji-hwan should be worried because Tae-pyong, whom Ji-hwan had betrayed, was now free. Plus, Tae-pyong had formed an alliance with Young-hee, who also held a grudge against Ji-hwan. When Ji-hwan arrived home, his attitude toward Eun-ha suddenly turned cold. He firmly told her that he only thought of her as a tenant. Ji-hwan did this because he didn't want Eun-ha to get involved in any more dangerous situations. Hearing this harsh treatment from the man she cared about, she felt disappointed. Turns out, Eun-ha wasn't the only one upset. Jae-soo and his friends were also annoyed by Ji-hwan's behavior. They felt ignored because Ji-hwan didn't include them in his plan the day before. So, at breakfast, they decided to ignore Ji-hwan. Anytime Ji-hwan tried to take some food, they would move it to someone else. Later, when Eun-ha offered to take everyone to the bookstore, Jae-soo treated everyone except Ji-hwan and Il-young. Meanwhile, Hyun-woo found Taek's statement more convincing and planned to arrest Gang-gil. However, they still hadn't caught Young-hee, who had escaped with a bag of money from a drug deal. Taek was treated in the hospital and was finally reunited with his younger sister after a long time. Seeing this reunion, Ji-hwan felt deeply moved. On the other hand, Eun-ha wanted to show the time capsule she found to Hyun-woo. However, she was worried about making others uncomfortable by bringing up questions about the past. While sitting in the park, Ji-hwan saw Eun-ha returning home with a time capsule. She told him that she had finally met the person she had been searching for. Eun-ha also mentioned that she hoped they wouldn't meet again. There, Hyun-woo then admitted to Eun-ha that he wasn't the person she was looking for. He had wanted to tell her from the beginning but was afraid of disappointing her. Eun-ha had been searching for her childhood friend for so long because she felt guilty. She knew that her friend had been kidnapped because of something she did. What she didn't realize was that Hyun-woo already knew who this friend really was. On the other hand, Eun-ha decided to move out of Ji-hwan's house. She didn't want to meet her childhood friend anymore, thinking that some people, like Ji-hwan had said, just want to leave their past behind. But before leaving, Eun-ha kept her promise to go to the bookstore with Jae-soo and the others. Like before, they continued to ignore Ji-hwan and Il-young. At the bookstore, when Eun-ha found a book about penguins, she was reminded of the time when Ji-hwan kept her warm in the cold room. But she quickly put the book back, determined to leave Ji-hwan before getting too attached. At that time, Jae-soo started to accept Eun-ha being around them. This change happened when Eun-ha stood up for herself against a group of high school students who were making fun of her while she looked at elementary school books. Jae-soo even called her brave. Their relationship grew closer, and Eun-ha managed to get Jae-soo and his friends to study hard, even without her being there. She brought them lots of food to keep them motivated, doing all of this as a way to repay their kindness and as a final gift before she moved out. On the other hand, Ji-hwan's behavior confused Eun-ha. He didn't want anyone to care about him, yet he was always caring for others. Even though she hadn't found a new place to live, she refused all of Ji-hwan's help, determined to figure things out on her own. Elsewhere, even though the collaboration contract was canceled, Yi-na still found a way to impress Ji-hwan. She made Thirsty Deer products sell out quickly by posting about them on social media, and it became a trending topic on the internet. However, Ji-hwan wasn't interested in hiring her again. Meanwhile, Jae-soo and his friends came up with a plan to keep Eun-ha from moving out of Ji-hwan's house. They arranged a blind date for Eun-ha with another man, hoping it would make Ji-hwan jealous. They thought Ji-hwan had been too harsh with Eun-ha recently. As expected, he couldn't resist checking on the blind date, which took place in a cafe below his office. At that time, Eun-ha seemed cheerful during the date, which made Ji-hwan very upset. His attempt to stay hidden failed when Yi-na suddenly showed up. Jae-soo and his friends planned to keep Eun-ha from moving out, and to reconcile her with Ji-hwan didn't work. Instead, Ji-hwan and Eun-ha ended up arguing like a bickering couple. Deep down, he regretted the harsh words he had said to Eun-ha. Then, Eun-ha continued searching for a cheap place to live. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan secretly helped her find a safe and suitable house. But since nothing seemed quite right, he didn't actually want Eun-ha to leave. However, he wasn't ready to admit that. In the end, Ji-hwan went ahead and signed a contract with a homeowner anyway. While on her way to look for a house, Eun-ha was chased by 3 high school students who had bullied Jae-soo earlier. This led to an incident where Eun-ha accidentally gave one of them a nosebleed, and they all ended up at the police station. At the same time, someone nearby found Eun-ha's phone, which was still connected to a call with Ji-hwan. When Ji-hwan found out where the phone was, he rushed to the location, but Hyun-woo arrived first and took Eun-ha with him. Ji-hwan forgot that he still had Eun-ha's phone. When Hyun-woo tried to help find it by calling the number, the phone in Ji-hwan's pocket rang. Realizing this, Ji-hwan quickly put the phone away and left his hiding spot. At that time, Hyun-woo only found out that Eun-ha had been staying at Ji-hwan's house when he offered to take her home. But now, Eun-ha was planning to move out. She felt bad for not telling Hyun-woo the truth earlier. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan didn't have the courage to give Eun-ha the rental contract for an apartment he had found for her, even though he had been waiting patiently for her to return. Unbeknownst to him, Eun-ha was planning to sign a rental contract the next day. She told Ji-hwan about her plans because she wanted to clear things up before leaving, especially since he hadn't mentioned anything about finding her phone earlier that day. Not ready to say goodbye to Eun-ha, Ji-hwan went to a spot in the house where they had shared memories. Without thinking, he quickly ran to find her. Before he could reach the fence, Jae-soo stopped him, having earlier seen Eun-ha and Hyun-woo together in a park. Unfortunately, Eun-ha wasn't answering Ji-hwan's calls. When Ji-hwan finally found her, he saw that Hyun-woo was confessing his feelings for her. Ji-hwan was shocked to hear Hyun-woo's declaration of love. He tried to come up with a reason to interrupt their conversation. Even though Eun-ha initially hesitated, she eventually agreed to go home with Ji-hwan. Then, Hyun-woo accused Ji-hwan of being a bully and brought up his troubled past and family background. But Ji-hwan didn't care about others' opinions cause what mattered most to him was protecting Eun-ha with everything he had. There, Eun-ha decided not to go back to Ji-hwan's house and instead went to stay at Miho's place. Miho's parents treated Eun-ha like their own daughter, and they all enjoyed playing cards together without any awkwardness. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan was worried when he learned that Eun-ha was staying at Miho's house. He confided in Il-young, wondering if he had done something wrong to make Eun-ha upset. Ji-hwan felt he needed to do something after hearing Hyun-woo express his feelings for Eun-ha earlier that day. According to Il-young, the main difference between Ji-hwan and Hyun-woo is that Hyun-woo had the courage to be honest about his feelings, while Ji-hwan struggled with this. The next day, Jae-soo and his friends noticed that Ji-hwan seemed sad because Eun-ha didn't come home last night. They decided to come up with another plan to help them make up, using an idea from Hong-ki. They were right about Ji-hwan's feelings. That morning, Ji-hwan couldn't stop thinking about how to be honest with Eun-ha. He kept deleting messages and hesitated to send anything to her. As for Miho, she had been feeling strange since the day before and decided to take a pregnancy test. But before she could see the results, she had to take Eun-ha home. When they arrived, Hong-ki and his friends picked them up, and Jae-soo, who was keeping an eye on the house, pulled Ji-hwan and Il-young into the same car. No one listened when Eun-ha and Miho asked to be let out, and Jae-soo and his friends continued with their plan. During the ride, Ji-hwan scolded Manho for not driving carefully, which caused the orange Ji-hwan was holding to bump into Eun-ha, waking her up. At that time, Miho almost choked on the orange too. Despite the awkward ride, they eventually arrived at a villa. Bored of staying inside, Eun-ha decided to go for a walk around the area. However, after an hour passed and she didn't return, Ji-hwan and the others began to worry and searched for her. Then, Ji-hwan eventually found Eun-ha in the forest. When he saw her nearly slipping, he quickly grabbed her hand, but they both ended up slipping and rolling down a slope. Eun-ha thought Ji-hwan was overreacting since she just wanted to go for a walk. In the middle of their argument, Ji-hwan suddenly confessed his feelings for her. Unsure of how to respond, Eun-ha remained silent. Since her foot was sprained, Ji-hwan decided to carry her back to the villa. But when Eun-ha revealed that she liked him too, Ji-hwan was so surprised that he almost dropped her. He was even more shocked when Eun-ha kissed him on the lips. On the other hand, Ji-hwan wanted to impress Eun-ha, but ended up embarrassing himself. He tried to take over cooking from Man-ho, but almost ended up burning all the meat. Fortunately, he managed to save it, and nothing was ruined. Once the food was ready, he proudly served it to Eun-ha, which amazed Jae-soo and his friends. Meanwhile, the pregnancy test that Mi-ho had been carrying around all day suddenly went missing. Soon after, she sneaked into the car to look for it, but when Il-young caught her, she gave up the search. There, Il-young noticed that Mi-ho hadn't eaten anything at dinner, so he took the initiative to buy her some medicine for indigestion. Before going to bed, Ji-hwan gave Eun-ha a bag of ice to help with her swollen foot. As he did, his heart raced, and he couldn't stop thinking about how Eun-ha had kissed him earlier that day. The next day, Eun-ha decided to cancel her rental contract because she planned to continue living at Ji-hwan's house. This made both of them happy, but it also made things a bit awkward between them. Ji-hwan especially felt nervous whenever he was near Eun-ha, unable to control his feelings. At the office, Ji-hwan found it hard to focus, especially after Eun-ha sent him a cute video of herself wearing a bunny hat. To clear his mind and stay calm, Ji-hwan started reading prayers. Meanwhile, Man-ho shared something he found while cleaning the car that morning with Jae-soo and the others. He showed them a positive pregnancy test. Without thinking, Jae-soo immediately assumed it belonged to Eun-ha. However, Il-young suspected it might belong to Mi-ho, especially since her behavior the previous night was suspicious. The following day, Eun-ha felt she needed to respond to Hyun-woo's confession of love. She apologized and told him she couldn't accept his feelings. Hyun-woo understood and asked if they could still be friends. Just then, Ji-hwan appeared and interrupted them, grabbing Eun-ha's arm and pulling her away. His unusual behavior made Eun-ha smile, as Ji-hwan clearly didn't want to see her with another man. He then kissed Eun-ha on the lips to show his love for her. The flowers Ji-hwan gave her were beautiful, just like Eun-ha's smile as she thought about the moment. Both of them spent time choosing their clothes and getting ready to make a good impression when they met again. Eun-ha's new look earned her compliments from Jae-soo and the others. At dinner, Ji-hwan and Eun-ha couldn't stop expressing their feelings for each other, making it hard for Hong-ki to concentrate when it was his turn to say grace. Deep in love, Ji-hwan imagined all the wonderful things he could do with Eun-ha, but his thoughts were interrupted by Il-young's voice, which startled him. Ji-hwan noticed something was off with Il-young, especially since he didn't join them for breakfast that morning. What Ji-hwan didn't know was that Il-young was worried about Mi-ho, who might be pregnant. Unsure of what to do, Il-young sought advice from Ji-hwan, who told him to be honest, just as he had always encouraged others to be. Meanwhile, when a young boy was at Mi-ho's salon, Hong-ki happened to come by to get his hair done. There, Mi-ho complimented Hong-ki on how well he handled the little boy. It turns out that Hong-ki and Ji-hwan's other subordinates really like children, except for Il-young, who has never been interested in having a family or getting into complicated relationships. That's why Mi-ho always turned down Il-young's invitations for dates. Even though Eun-ha's applications to be a content creator were rejected several times, she didn't give up. She decided to start her own channel and upload videos just like she did when she worked at Macron Soft. That afternoon, Eun-ha went shopping for cute costumes and children's toys. Struggling to carry all the things she bought, she was surprised when Ji-hwan showed up to help. They ended up spending the day together, having fun as they walked through the mall. Suddenly, the power went out, and all the kids were scared. Ji-hwan quickly took the initiative to entertain them by doing shadow puppets on the wall. This reminded Eun-ha of her childhood friend. Her friend's kindness inspired her to become a children's content creator, hoping to give other kids the same beautiful memories she had. The next day, Eun-ha's first video became the center of a comment battle between Hyun-woo and Ji-hwan. Ji-hwan was frustrated because Hyun-woo commented first, and Eun-ha replied to him before Ji-hwan. Amid the comment war, Yang-hee also chimed in, pretending to be a child. Yang-hee was planning to take revenge on Ji-hwan by using Eun-ha as part of his scheme. On the other hand, Yi-na, who was filming a commercial at the Thirsty Deer office, invited Ji-hwan and the employees to dinner. Ji-hwan initially tried to decline the invitation, but Man-ho and the others were so excited about it that Ji-hwan ended up joining them. During dinner, When the waiter got too close to Eun-ha's face while taking orders, Ji-hwan quickly pulled her chair back. Instead of letting the waiter ask for orders one by one, he told Man-ho to just write down the menu that could be served. Annoyed by how much attention Ji-hwan was giving to Eun-ha, Ina made fun of Eun-ha's new channel, pointing out that it didn't have many viewers yet. Luckily, Ji-hwan immediately stepped in to defend Eun-ha. In the restroom, Ina hinted to Eun-ha that she should stay away from Ji-hwan because, to Ina, Ji-hwan was someone who had saved her life, and she wanted to be with him. However, Eun-ha couldn't do that because she truly loved Ji-hwan. Even though Ina felt heartbroken, she ignored Hong-ki's attempts to show he cared, even though he was the only one who noticed her hard work. Hong-ki even saw that Ina's heels were hurting her feet. While everyone else was enjoying dinner, Il-young was nowhere to be found. He had locked himself in his study, thinking about all the memories he shared with Mi-ho. At that time, Il-young regretted saying something that had disappointed her. Feeling very frustrated by Mi-ho's rejection, Il-young decided to go to her house while drunk, carrying a few things as an apology. But because he was drunk, he ended up falling into Mi-ho's arms. The next day, Il-young felt embarrassed about his behavior when he got drunk the night before and ran away from Mi-ho's house. He was especially mortified because he had acted that way in front of Mi-ho's parents. And Mi-ho's father, feeling bad for Il-young, told Mi-ho to help him to a room. It was there that Il-young admitted that he wanted to be by Mi-ho's side and didn't want her to face any difficulties. However, Mi-ho was upset that Il-young had come to her house without her knowing, especially since her parents had shown Il-young her childhood photos, thinking he might be a future son-in-law. In reality, they had never had a special relationship. Despite being told to leave, Il-young didn't give up. He even started visiting more often and left his car at Mi-ho's house as a gift for her mother. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan asked Dong-hee to be Eun-ha's driver for the day. Before heading to their destination, Eun-ha invited Dong-hee to stop by a bakery. There, they ran into Hyun-woo, who was also buying bread. Although Eun-ha didn't realize it, Dong-hee and Hyun-woo already knew each other. Feeling uneasy in the bakery, Dong-hee excused himself to go to the restroom. When Dong-hee returned, a man suddenly approached him, accusing him of being responsible for his sister's death. This encounter brought back memories of a school friend who had died in an accident, which deeply troubled Dong-hee. Feeling overwhelmed, Dong-hee panicked and ran away from Hyun-woo. Eun-ha then learned that Dong-hee had been traumatized by events from his past. Fortunately, after escaping from the man's pursuit, Dong-hee eventually returned home. Eun-ha and Hyun-woo, who had been searching for him, were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief when he was found safe. After Hyun-woo was caught dropping off Eun-ha, Jae-soo, who had just returned from feeding the cat, invited him inside. Then, Hyun-woo's opinion of Ji-hwan's group started to change. He saw how close they all were and how much they cared for Dong-hee, the youngest member. When Jae-soo and his friends found out that Hyun-woo was a prosecutor, they quickly apologized for being rude earlier. Just then, Ji-hwan came out of the room and lightly kicked Hyun-woo, reminding him that he wasn't giving up and would still try to win Eun-ha's heart one day. The next day, while Eun-ha was working at her part-time job, Yang-hee approached her and handed her a black cat balloon. Ji-hwan quickly stepped in and grabbed Yang-hee's hand, clearly upset. He held back from getting physical in front of Eun-ha and instead told her to go into the cafe so she wouldn't hear their conversation. There, Yang-hee indirectly warned Ji-hwan to be more careful now that Taepyeong was free. When Ji-hwan asked Eun-ha to quit her part-time job, she refused, thinking he was worrying too much. She believed she could take care of herself, especially since Ji-hwan never fully explained his connection to Yang-hee. The tension between Ji-hwan and Yang-hee eased after an apology. Ji-hwan admitted that he was so worried about Eun-ha that he overreacted, especially because of his troubled past with Yang-hee. Later, Ji-hwan surprised Eun-ha with a fully equipped studio where she could create her content. He felt she deserved it, as she had become a part of their family. However, being alone in the house made things a bit awkward, especially after Eun-ha, in her excitement over Ji-hwan's story, accidentally fell onto the mattress, making the situation even more uncomfortable. Meanwhile, the chief prosecutor reassigned the cat company drug case that Hyun-woo was handling to another office, which made Hyun-woo suspect that the chief might be involved in the case. Hyun-woo's anger grew as he thought about all the effort he had put into solving the case. Seeing this, Mr. Oh and his other colleagues tried to cheer him up. Ji-hwan heard about the case transfer and informed the people involved. It turned out that Hyun-woo had gathered enough evidence, but his superiors kept rejecting his requests to take action. Frustrated, Hyun-woo asked Ji-hwan about Tae-pyong, knowing that Ji-hwan no longer had any connection with him. The next day, Gang Gil and Yang Hee were released. To continue investigating secretly, Hyun-woo invited Mr. Oh and his colleagues to have lunch at Yang Hee's hotel. Even though they were almost kicked out, they eventually got a table. However, one of Yang Hee's men noticed them and reported it to Yang Hee, who then came to meet them. There, Hyun-woo warned Yang Hee to be careful, as he might be made a scapegoat by Tae-pyong. During their tense conversation, Hyun-woo noticed that Yang Hee's phone was playing one of Eun-ha's videos. Realizing that Eun-ha might be used in a revenge plot, Hyun-woo angrily pushed Yang Hee against the wall, realizing the danger Eun-ha could be in. Donating to orphanages has become a regular activity for thirsty deer. Today, Jae-soo and his friends plan to deliver some items to the orphans. Usually, after dropping off the donations, they would leave quickly to avoid having a bad influence on the kids. However, Eun-ha suggested that they stay and spend some time with the children. In the end, Jae-soo and his friends couldn't say no. Following Eun-ha's suggestion, they put on a little show for the orphans. At first, the kids were scared of Jae-soo's tough appearance, but soon they were laughing at the silly performances. Curious about why he hadn't heard from Jae-soo after the visit to the orphanage, Ji-hwan decided to check it out. But just as he was about to leave, Yina arrived. She tried to convince Ji-hwan that she was a better match for him than Eun-ha, claiming that she could accept his past as a gangster. Despite this, Ji-hwan's heart was still set on Eun-ha. He continued to the orphanage and was happy to see the orphans having so much fun. When Jae-soo noticed Ji-hwan, they invited him to join in the fun. After thinking about what Yina said all day, Ji-hwan decided it was time to tell Eun-ha about his past. He explained that he only discovered his father was a gangster when he was a teenager because he had lived with his mother since childhood. After his mother passed away, Ji-hwan was forced to join his father's gang and even changed his name. He had no choice because he was in debt from paying for his mother's hospital treatment. Even though his past was difficult, Eun-ha accepted it. She assured Ji-hwan that she knew he was a good person and promised to support him no matter what. Meanwhile, Jae-soo and his friends were thrilled because the video of their performance at the orphanage was uploaded to social media and received many positive comments. Ji-hwan couldn't stop watching the video, but he noticed a comment that seemed threatening. Remembering what Yang Hee had said, Ji-hwan rushed to the office lobby after hearing that Eun-ha had arrived. To his shock, a man had been following and waiting to attack Eun-ha. It turned out the person who commented on the video wasn't Yang Hee, but Sung-hee, the older brother of Dong-hee's school friend who had died in an accident. The man was seeking revenge for Sung-hee's death. To protect Dong-hee, Ji-hwan was willing to do anything to get Sung-hee's older brother to forgive him, except fire him. For Dong-hee, working at Thirsty Deer is his second chance. Meanwhile, Hyun-woo stepped in as a mediator with Sung-hee's mother. While Dong-hee's careless driving is partly to blame, he has already faced serious consequences and feels deep regret over Sung-hee's death. And Sung-hee's mother, moved by Dong-hee's remorse, finally accepted her daughter's passing and told Dong-hee not to blame himself anymore. At that time, Hyun-woo was relieved that Dong-hee was with someone kind and understanding who could guide him. Hyun-woo apologized for the past misunderstanding when he thought Ji-hwan and his friends were dangerous. He even admitted that he had been against Dong-hee joining Thirsty Deer. Now, Hyun-woo and Ji-hwan were starting to get along. They agreed to work together to protect Eun-ha from the evil plans of Yang Hee and his gang. They also planned to solve the drug case involving the cat company. Meanwhile, Eun-ha kept her promise to help ease Ji-hwan's burden after what happened with Dong-hee. She took him to a high place where they could shout as loud as they wanted, hoping it would help release all the stress and worries they were feeling. Seeing how sincerely Ji-hwan cared for Dong-hee and those close to him made Eun-ha love him even more. On another note, Mi-ho went for her first pregnancy checkup at the hospital. When she heard the baby's heartbeat, she was both surprised and confused about what to do next. After returning from the hospital, Mi-ho asked Eun-ha what she thought about single mothers. She also wondered if Eun-ha would help her raise the baby if she ended up raising the child alone. While scrolling through social media, Hong-ki stumbled upon a photo of Yina that someone had secretly taken. Without hesitation, Hong-ki rushed to her location to protect her from the paparazzi. Yina had been hoping that Ji-hwan would come to her rescue, but Ji-hwan's heart had always belonged to Eun-ha. What Eun-ha didn't know was that Ji-hwan and Eun-ha had been close long before Eun-ha met him. Although Ji-hwan kept this a secret, Eun-ha began to suspect something because Ji-hwan's actions reminded her of her childhood friend. Even though she tried to dismiss the thought since their names didn't match, she still asked Hyun-woo about it. Unexpectedly, Yang-hee also discovered the truth. Meanwhile, Hyun-woo decided to continue investigating the cat company case with the help of Mr. Yang and his team. They uncovered a suspicious transaction involving Tae-pyong, who had been using a liquor company as a front for the past 8 years, with Gang Gil as the manager. After many years, Ji-hwan finally reunited with Tae-pyong. Tae-pyong asked Ji-hwan to rejoin the Bulldog Gang, the name of their old gang that Tae-pyong wanted to restart. However, Ji-hwan refused, as he no longer wanted to be involved in criminal activities. But Tae-pyong insisted that once someone becomes a criminal, they can never truly change, suggesting that Ji-hwan's criminal background would always define him. Tae-pyong even hinted that Ji-hwan could never live a normal life or have a proper relationship with a woman, indirectly threatening Ji-hwan and Eun-ha, who had inspired Ji-hwan to change. This was why Ji-hwan had kept his true identity hidden from Eun-ha. He wanted her to remember him as a good person, not as a former gangster who might bring danger into her life. On the other hand, while Il-young was about to take Ji-hwan home, he received a call from Mi-ho. Ji-hwan asked Il-young to go meet Mi-ho while he would head home alone. Soon after, Il-young quickly left the car in the middle of traffic and ran as fast as he could to Mi-ho's salon. When Mi-ho tripped and almost fell, Il-young caught her, worried about the baby. At that time, Mi-ho didn't know that Il-young had already figured out she was pregnant after they went on an outing some time ago. Mi-ho insisted on raising the baby on her own, but Il-young wanted to take responsibility. As Hong-ki had mentioned before, Il-young never wanted to start a family, but now he had changed his mind because he truly loved Mi-ho. He didn't want her to face the challenges alone. Il-young was overjoyed when Mi-ho decided to keep the baby. When they looked at the ultrasound, he excitedly tried to describe what the baby might look like, even though Mi-ho couldn't see much because the image was blurry. It turned out that Hong-ki and his friends were wrong about Il-young not liking kids. Il-young was just good at hiding his feelings, letting others make assumptions about him. Growing up without parents had left Il-young with emotional scars, but now he was determined to be a good father. Unbeknownst to them, Mi-ho's father had overheard their conversation and asked them for an explanation, making both of them nervous. Meanwhile, after Hyun-woo told Eun-ha that Ji-hwan was her childhood friend, he was filled with anxiety. Hyun-woo was torn between pursuing the person he loved or letting go. His mind told him to move on, but his heart wouldn't let him. Hyun-woo was told to follow his heart, but if it became too painful, it might be best to distract himself by meeting new people. The following day, Eun-ha felt anxious after learning the truth from Hyun-woo. She tried calling Ji-hwan, but couldn't reach him because his phone was left in the car that Il-young was driving. Worried that Ji-hwan hadn't come home yet, Eun-ha searched for him everywhere. As she looked, memories of their time together kept flooding her mind. Her search ended when Ji-hwan suddenly appeared in front of her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Eun-ha couldn't hold back her tears because she realized she hadn't recognized Ji-hwan as her childhood friend all this time. Hearing this, Ji-hwan hugged her tightly, and they both shared a moment of sadness and longing in each other's arms. The truth about Eun-ha's childhood friend was finally revealed. To her surprise, the person she had been searching for was right beside her all along, bringing her unexpected joy. Ji-hwan had not wanted to tell Eun-ha the truth because he had tried to bury his past, but fate brought them back together in the very place where they had spent time as children. The next morning, after seeing Ji-hwan leaving Eun-ha's room, Jae-soo and his friends were shocked by more unexpected news. Gathering his courage, Il-young announced his plans to marry Mi-ho and take responsibility for the baby. Eun-ha was the most surprised, as she hadn't realized her best friend was involved with Il-young. Unfortunately, Il-young's decision to marry Mi-ho was met with opposition from Mi-ho's father. Knowing this, Ji-hwan quickly asked Jae-soo and his friends to help prepare some items so they could visit Mi-ho's house with Il-young. Meanwhile, Eun-ha went ahead to try and convince Mi-ho's father that Il-young is a good and responsible man. However, her words weren't enough to change his mind. When Ji-hwan arrived, he stepped in to help. As a guardian figure, Ji-hwan asked Mi-ho's father to approve the marriage. Trusting Ji-hwan's judgment, Mi-ho's mother also supported the idea. There, Il-young promised that he would always take care of Mi-ho and their baby and even offered his car to make it easier for her to get around. The atmosphere lightened as they all ate together. However, during the meal, Ji-hwan got drunk after just one glass of soju. Then, Eun-ha quickly took him home before he could start acting strangely, as he had in the past. Seeing her best friend getting married made Eun-ha a bit jealous. She tried dropping hints about marriage, but Ji-hwan didn't seem to catch on, as he hadn't really thought about it yet. Like many women, Eun-ha also wanted to marry the person she loved. The next day, Eun-ha was surprised to see that her channel followers had suddenly increased. At first, she was excited, but then she remembered her conversation with Ji-hwan the night before, and her mood changed. She was still upset that Ji-hwan didn't understand her hints about marriage. Ji-hwan quickly realized she was angry, but he wasn't sure what he had done wrong. However, there was a more urgent issue that Ji-hwan needed to address. He decided to go to the prosecutor's office to meet with Hyun-woo. Ji-hwan reported that Tae-pyong had gathered former members of the Bulldog Gang and was buying up businesses at unreasonable prices. To uncover Tae-pyong's hidden crimes, Hyun-woo even planned to turn Gang-gil into a traitor, as Gang-gil held all the important documents. Ji-hwan agreed to reach out to Gang-gil himself to help with the investigation. Meanwhile, Miho discovered that Il-young's savings were much larger than she had expected. Before, Miho had encouraged him to save money because they would have many expenses for their future child. She even stopped Il-young from ordering what she thought was expensive food. However, it turns out that the cost was only a tiny fraction of Il-young's wealth. This made Miho realize that Il-young was very responsible, and with his careful financial planning, she felt confident that their future was secure. On another note, Il-young suggested that Ji-hwan buy gifts to make up with Eun-ha, who was upset. Meanwhile, Eun-ha wanted to surprise Ji-hwan by hiding in his room. However, she picked the wrong moment to come out of hiding and saw Ji-hwan taking off his clothes. Embarrassed, Eun-ha had to wait for Ji-hwan to get dressed before they could exchange gifts. Soon after, Eun-ha gave Ji-hwan a cake she had baked with Dong-hee earlier that day, while Ji-hwan, unfortunately, forgot the main gift he had prepared, which was still at his office. So, he ended up giving her a bouquet of sunflowers, which were her favorite flowers. The next day, Tae-pyong and his gang broke into the Thirsty Deer office to disrupt a meeting. When Ji-hwan found out, he quickly stepped in and chased them away. It was revealed that two employees, who were former members of the Bulldog Gang, had betrayed the company because they feared for their lives. This fear wasn't just limited to them. Other employees who were also scared decided to resign. This situation left Ji-hwan feeling frustrated and worried about the future of his company. Thinking their plan didn't fully succeed, Yang-hee tried to convince Tae-pyong to kidnap Eun-ha, believing it would make it easier to destroy Ji-hwan. However, Tae-pyong refused, which made Yang-hee even angrier. The next day, the news about Tae-pyong and his gang breaking into Ji-hwan's office reached Hyun-woo, who immediately worried about Eun-ha, knowing she could be a target. At that time, Hyun-woo was with Eun-ha while she was hosting an event for kids in the park. But he became distracted, and Yang-hee and his gang attacked Eun-ha when she wanted to throw out the trash. Thankfully, Hyun-woo arrived just in time. He protected Eun-ha, but in the process, he was hit on the head with a rock. Ji-hwan was furious when he learned that Hyun-woo was hurt. In his anger, he attacked Yang-hee, leaving him battered. And the police, seeing the situation, initially suspected Ji-hwan of being involved, but Eun-ha explained that Ji-hwan was only helping. However, since both Ji-hwan and Yang-hee had criminal backgrounds, the police continued their interrogation. Luckily, Hyun-woo regained consciousness after getting medical help. The doctor reassured Eun-ha that Hyun-woo's injury wasn't too serious, although he needed to stay in the hospital. Despite this, Hyun-woo wanted to leave as soon as possible to deal with the ongoing situation. After providing evidence and giving his statement, Hyun-woo requested that the police arrest Yang-hee and release Ji-hwan. However, Hyun-woo couldn't hide his frustration towards Ji-hwan, blaming him for everything that happened. He believed that if Eun-ha hadn't been involved with Ji-hwan, she wouldn't have been in danger, surrounded by gangsters. Hyun-woo regretted trusting Ji-hwan to keep Eun-ha safe. Unexpectedly, Tae-pyong showed up at the police station just as Eun-ha approached Ji-hwan. To protect Eun-ha from Tae-pyong, Ji-hwan acted cold and distant, trying to push her away. Eun-ha, not understanding what was happening, felt confused and disappointed by Ji-hwan's sudden change in behavior. The next day, Ji-hwan didn't show up at breakfast, which made everyone feel uneasy and sad. No one had much of an appetite because of the problems at the company. There, Il-young suggested that Eun-ha should stay at Miho's house for a while until things settled down. For the sake of everyone, Eun-ha agreed to this idea. Turns out, Eun-ha wasn't the only one feeling confused cause Ji-hwan was also feeling down all day. He was haunted by memories of his past. And Jae-soo, who had turned his life around thanks to Ji-hwan, believed that Ji-hwan could get through this tough time. Jae-soo knew that Ji-hwan had loyal people by his side, including himself, who were ready to help. Despite Miho's advice to break up with Ji-hwan, Eun-ha decided to stay by his side, no matter how hard things got. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan tried to convince Gang-il to hand over important documents related to Taepyeong's money laundering, but Gang-il refused. However, Ji-hwan was confident that Gang-il would eventually change his mind. What neither of them knew was that someone was secretly watching their meeting. Even though Eun-ha had just moved out, Ji-hwan already missed her. He went into her room to feel closer to her. At that time, Jae-soo and the others missed her too, but they knew they had to keep their distance for a while. After all, Eun-ha had almost been kidnapped because of her connection to them, who were former criminals. But they didn't realize how determined Eun-ha was. She even met with Hong-ki to help rebuild Thirsty Deer's reputation by planning a collaboration video with Yi-na. After the attack by Taepyeong, many employees had quit, and this had hurt the company's image with the public. Agreeing to the plan, Hong-ki secretly brought Eun-ha and Yi-na to Ji-hwan's house, where Eun-ha's studio was also located. Ji-hwan found out about Hong-ki's actions but didn't react much. Instead, he told Dong-hee to take Eun-ha home. However, Ji-hwan changed his mind and decided to take her himself. His cold attitude made Eun-ha upset because all she wanted was to be close to him. While in the car, Ji-hwan gave her a gift he had left at the office, and it was a beautiful, sparkling necklace. He also asked her to be patient and wait until all the problems they were facing were resolved. As expected, the video that Eun-ha and Yi-na made went viral. Not only kids but also actors started following the trend from the video. Ji-hwan was really proud of what Eun-ha had done. It not only helped the company but also eased some of the burden Ji-hwan had been carrying. Meanwhile, Hyun-woo went to meet Yang-hee to learn more. Hyun-woo felt sympathy for Yang-hee because he realized Yang-hee was just being used as a scapegoat. The truth was that Taepyeong didn't trust Yang-hee but relied on Gang-il instead. After paying a fine, Yang-hee was finally released, but he had to wear an electronic ankle bracelet every day. Around the same time, Jae-soo secretly met with Taepyeong at his company. Jae-soo begged Taepyeong not to interfere with Ji-hwan's new life, which had changed for the better. Jae-soo was even willing to sacrifice himself to ensure Taepyeong would leave Ji-hwan alone. As Ji-hwan suspected, Gang-il finally changed his mind. He told Ji-hwan where the important documents were hidden and even gave him the password to open the safe. But when it came to retrieving the documents, Ji-hwan didn't want to involve Il-young and his friends. He didn't want to risk the safety of the people he cared about. Knowing there was a chance he might not succeed, Ji-hwan was grateful that Il-young could take care of the company and the employees if something happened to him. It was almost like he was leaving a will. Then, Ji-hwan decided to involve Hyun-woo in his plan. When he reached the location Gang-il had mentioned, Ji-hwan called Hyun-woo and told him to bring the police. But Hyun-woo thought Ji-hwan was being reckless by going there alone without telling him first. What Ji-hwan didn't expect was that Taepyeong already knew about the plan. Taepyeong even took Jae-soo hostage. At that time, Ji-hwan tried to save Jae-soo, even though he ended up getting beaten. At the same time, Yang-hee, who held a grudge, came with the intention of killing Taepyeong. Seeing this, Ji-hwan moved to protect Taepyeong, and the knife meant for Taepyeong stabbed Ji-hwan in the stomach. Shortly after, Ji-hwan collapsed, and the only person he could think of was Eun-ha. He knew he had to survive to see her again. The necklace he had given to Eun-ha suddenly fell off, which worried her because she couldn't reach Ji-hwan on the phone. Eun-ha's worst fears came true when she found out that Ji-hwan was critically injured while protecting Taepyeong. Fortunately, Hyun-woo and the police arrived just in time to stop things from getting worse. At that moment, Eun-ha, Jae-soo, and their friends were all deeply worried about Ji-hwan's condition. They all prayed that he would survive. Thankfully, the surgery went well, and Ji-hwan's life was saved. However, he fell into a coma, leaving everyone heartbroken. But Eun-ha refused to give up hope. Instead of letting the sadness consume her, she encouraged Jae-soo and his friends to focus on their work to keep the company running, just as Ji-hwan would have wanted. Meanwhile, Eun-ha stayed by Ji-hwan's side at the hospital, hoping for his recovery. There, she tried to stay strong in front of Jae-soo and his friends. But when Mi-ho arrived, she couldn't hold back her tears anymore. She kept telling herself that Ji-hwan was strong and would definitely get better. Jae-soo noticed that Eun-ha was wearing herself out while waiting at the hospital, so he took over her duties so she could rest. While sitting with Ji-hwan, Jae-soo noticed some gray hairs and couldn't resist pulling them out. Every time he did, Ji-hwan's fingers would twitch a little. On one of the attempts, Ji-hwan suddenly made a sound. Overjoyed, Jae-soo quickly called the doctor to check on him. When Eun-ha returned from the supermarket, she couldn't believe her eyes that Ji-hwan was awake. She dropped everything and ran to hug him tightly. Everyone who heard the news was filled with happiness. Meanwhile, Tae-pyong, who had been silent since the incident, only asked about Ji-hwan's condition. He was deeply moved by Ji-hwan's sacrifice and agreed to be questioned by the police only after learning that Ji-hwan was conscious. And Hyunwoo, who came to talk to Ji-hwan, shared the news that Tae-pyong had surrendered and would likely face at least 5 years in prison. But this news didn't bring Ji-hwan much relief. To find some peace, Ji-hwan visited his father in prison to apologize. He told his father that if their lives had been different, he would have loved to be a good son to him. But Tae-pyong made it clear that this would be their last meeting. After leaving the hospital, Ji-hwan wanted to spend some quiet time alone with Eun-ha. But Jae-soo and his friends, unaware of Ji-hwan's desire for privacy, insisted on having a party that lasted late into the night. Then, Ji-hwan used the excuse that his surgery was still causing him pain and needed to rest. Finally, he was able to have the peaceful night with Eun-ha that he had been hoping for. Several months passed, and Mi-ho had her baby. At that time, Jae-soo and his friends were amazed that Il-young was now a father. After meeting Mi-ho, Il-young's cold attitude gradually softened, and he became much friendlier. The man who used to seem cold now smiled a lot more. This happy atmosphere spread to everyone, including Ji-hwan. When he saw Eun-ha holding Mi-ho's baby, Ji-hwan suddenly started thinking about marriage. He thought maybe he could follow in the footsteps of Il-young and Mi-ho. During these months, Eun-ha's video channel also grew quickly. She gained more followers than she ever had when she was working at Macaron Soft, so now she's super busy. Because of this, she doesn't have much time to think about marriage. Ji-hwan regrets not realizing how important marriage was to her back then. If he had agreed, maybe by now, they would be happily living together with a child. This thought distracted him even during meetings, which annoyed Man-ho, who was presenting. But Ji-hwan wasn't ready to give up on the idea of marrying Eun-ha. He knew that only Eun-ha truly understood him, no matter the situation. She always made him feel comfortable and brought a smile to his face. After everything they've been through, Ji-hwan realized that Eun-ha was the one person he couldn't live without. She felt the same way. For Eun-ha, Ji-hwan was the one who inspired her to achieve her dreams. Even if the whole world judged Ji-hwan, Eun-ha would always stand by his side. She knew Ji-hwan would do the same for her if the roles were reversed. Ji-hwan's loyalty to Jae-soo and his friends had already proven that. Living together for so long made Eun-ha see how special Ji-hwan really was. Beneath his tough and scary appearance, there was a heart full of kindness. Just as Ji-hwan was about to propose to Eun-ha, he got a call from Il-young. Luckily, Il-young reminded him about the ring that Ji-hwan had forgotten to bring. Without that reminder, the proposal might not have been as special. Meanwhile, Il-young had plans for a romantic night with Mi-ho while her parents were away. But to his surprise, they came home early, ruining his plans. Mi-ho's mother noticed the candles and wine and understood what was going on, but Mi-ho's father didn't catch on. Hyunwoo, on the other hand, decided to step back from pursuing Eun-ha. He realized that seeing her happy was more important to him, so he chose to support her from a distance. Even though he still had feelings for her, Hyunwoo couldn't love another woman the way he loved Eun-ha. Then, Ji-hwan, determined to make the proposal unforgettable, decided not to ask for help from Il-young, who was more experienced with romantic gestures. Instead, Ji-hwan came up with his own plan to make sure that this moment would be something Eun-ha would remember forever. Without hesitation, she accepted that proposal. She was ready to create beautiful memories and face all of life's challenges with him. As a wedding gift, Jae-soo and his friends gave Eun-ha a car, which touched her deeply. In the end, Ji-hwan and Eun-ha lived happily together, and the story came to a joyful ending. The moral lesson from this series is remember, Even gangsters need a good support system, especially when it comes to romance.